and what a privilege it is to be back here. And I already then felt many similarities in the culture of Finland and Ireland when I met with many people here. So wonderful to be back, and thank you for hosting this excellent event that combines the voices from the Nordic countries and from Ireland. I'm not going to speak about Finnish lessons. I would rather think that and rethink and join thinking with you about the future of education. This already came up during this morning, the question about the phenomenon called Finland and Finnish education. Yes, we have always invested in education. As a small country, we cannot compete with workforce, but it is the insight and intellect that drives and can drive the whole nation and its individuals to a better future. And we have been at the first very surprised too about our successes at an international scale also when first PISA results came. And what was also very good for us too, that this success has made us also revisit our decisions and strategies, how and why we have accomplished these successes that of course we feel very proud of. But what are behind the reasons for these successes? Drinking more coffee per capita than any other nation? Having and taking the most saunas of any other country in the world? Eating fish nearly every day? Or investing in the highest quality preparation for all teachers, or all above? Yes, it is actually challenging to trace the one good reason behind the success. But to think seriously, let's think about Finland. Yes, we belong to a Nordic community and feel very proud to be part of that community. But we have also our uniqueness, as was already illuminated by earlier speakers. We have our own very difficult language, Finnish. We have also a big neighbor, Russia. We have been invaded several times and we have struggled. And one could say that what we are proud of in our Finnish character is sisu, sauna, and Sibelius. Sisu means guts, resilience, persistence. And this picture actually shows a very hard-working man who is building the future for his family and community. Then we have technologies that have always been important for human beings to flourish and to develop their nations. In this case, it was sauna, very widely spread nowadays. And also Sibelius, that to me shows the importance for innovation, creativity. You must create, every nation must create a platform for innovations to flourish and for creativity. So there are some key elements of our society, and creating an educational system and policy framework requires guts, resilience, common character, shared national visions. It's hard work. Unfortunately, it's not coffee, it's not fish, it's not sauna on its own. Well, these issues have already been tackled during the day. What may explain some of the successes in our education system? So this type of long-term political consensus in education as a development priority. Also the principle that we strive for is educational equity. Also the fact that we hope to provide the best education for every student, and education system is almost entirely publicly funded. Also in our system we have emphasized the importance for local autonomy and decentralization. We emphasize the importance of municipalities and schools being engaged in really investigating curriculum, developing their own local nuances into the curriculum. And this is also a way how you really make people engage in legislation, in recommendations, in national curriculum guidelines. It may otherwise become just a paper that you follow, but when you're really engaged in thinking and perhaps further slightly developing the nuances in those recommendations, they become your own, that you feel proud of and engaged. And I think there is something behind this local development of curricula that is also very important in our system. Also that we have conceptualized assurance, quality assurance and educational evaluations in a little bit different way. And we hope that our evaluations actually, it is enhancement-led, so we know then more how to develop education further. It's not a dead end, but rather a platform to develop education further and identify challenges and weaknesses. And finally, of course, it's very important that we have high quality professional teachers. Our teacher education programs are emphasizing the interplay between research and practice, and we really hope to cultivate teacher professions who are reflective practitioners, who can use research in the problem solving and in meaning making. When they teach, when they create pedagogies, when they confront parents and other stakeholders, there must be a professional discourse behind and resources teachers can use to make arguments, to explain. It is not everyday practice and discourse, but there must be evidence behind the decisions. Well, our talks here as panelists, we were really asked also to think about the future, the educational futures, and what kind of challenges Finland is currently facing and what we are pinpointing as our pivotal areas for further development. As we all know, societies are all the time changing. There are societal, economic, technological, environmental developments happening that no system can just be as it is, but rather it needs to be responsive to these changes. And education is not only, at least to me, about responding to changes that happen. Education actually should also be seen as making and creating the future. So there are two, responding, but also education is to make the future as we want it to be and we hope it to be. So what are our challenges? I think these have been addressed and these are becoming global challenges, not only national challenges. However, the ways in which these may be tackled may require different solutions in different countries and nations, depending on where they stand at those times when they are addressed. So society is changing. Aging society, growing welfare expenditures and regional developments. In Finland we can see signs of really rural versus urban developments. We also have migration and multiculturalism gradually and steadily growing. We are also very, very concerned of our youth and employment possibilities. It's very sad that under 25-year-olds do not find jobs. I think it is nearly 30% of our 25% are unemployed. And also what we are very worried about is the marginalization and well-being, social-emotional well-being of our learners. World and life is not only about PISA outcomes and scores and doing cognitively well. Life is much more, and being an active, productive, happy citizen, it requires much more. And we are getting very many warning signals from different sources, from quantitative and qualitative research, that the mental and socio-emotional well-being of our learners is somehow worryingly getting worse. So also the changing contexts and conditions in education challenge us, and I tried to map out some big questions. So how to ensure adequate welfare services and security in schools? How to combat signs of growing inequality in educational opportunities? We can see nowadays schools in different parts of Finland whose national assessment scores differ too much from one another between gender are worrying. Also, how to create 21st century education for 21st century learners. How should we conceptualize school? The physical school, the resources of the school, the pedagogies of the school, the learning materials and practices. How to make school and formal education motivating, engaging, that students really want to be there and want to learn there. We are finding now information in Finland that a lot of learning happens outside school. Digital natives, students may be engaged in all sorts of activities that schools do not know much about, and they are perhaps ill ready to harness those knowledge funds, practices, resources that students have outside the school. So the building of bridges between school and learners' lives and communities has become very important while we develop and renew our curriculum and pedagogies for different levels of education. I'm also raising, and this links to the second last question, how to extend educational ecologies for our learners and our society. Educational ecologies could be seen broader than we now see, and how schools should be more networked with other communities, such as libraries, museums, other non-formal institutions, and with the informal worlds of learners, creating larger ecologies for learning and growth. And last, the big question is how to really rewrite the relationship between education and future. We should not only respond to challenges, but to create together a better future. These were the challenges that we as panelists were asked to reflect upon. And while I was thinking about them, and I was thinking that where should I focus my attention to, I ended up actually drawing this bigger picture because I think they are all interlinked. They are in dynamic relationship. Economy and labor market, the economic sustainability of education systems, equality in educational opportunities, social cohesion. They are part of the same coin. And we should not look at them separately, actually. That's my message. Holistic transformation of education, as Minister Quinn was already referring to. We need to make changes at different levels at the same time. It's the holistic systemic development. So when we are road mapping the paths to 21st century learning and education, as this map slightly illuminates, I think, and I am stressing the importance for holistic transformation. So we need to look at pedagogies, the skills that learners and competencies and dispositions learners are likely to need in the future. And we need to look at the potential of technologies at every level of the system in education, how technology can enable and foster learning and education in general. This is, I think, and Finland has taken this approach, this kind of systemic college approach to the development. And here we need to really look at all these elements leadership development at any level, from the school level towards educational policy making. We need visionary, insightful leaders that lead these changes by inviting everybody involved, but yet there is a leader needed. Also, we need to look at providers and provision of different services who provide education, finance, monitoring and evaluation, teachers, learning environments, ICT, working methods, materials, core curriculum and legislation. It is these types of strategies that recognize the different parts and pieces how education and education systems are formed that may have something to say for the future development of our education systems. My last slide. These are not necessarily a governmental or Finnish governmental statement, but rather reflecting my own readings of relevant literature. Some are from Finnish strategies, how to create a better future, and some are insights and possibilities that perhaps could be considered when creating conditions to really create education that is future building, future oriented. So perhaps we all need to think in our respective jurisdictions how to develop new governance and accountability arrangements. Certainly in democratic societies, they cannot be only top-down and not only for control. I think they could be seen also more participatory and engaging. And they should also have authentic assessments. And as Minister Quinn was also referring to, these types of portfolio assessments, longitudinal follow-ups, not only statistical information, but also qualitative information about the developments. Also, as I was already stressing, perhaps one key to Finland's success in our country has been that we have engaged everybody in creating the curriculum with some national guidelines. That is actually also pretty prescribed, but yet there is space. I think human beings have a tendency to function better when there is some space for thinking, creativity and agency. That's our human mentality. But if you narrow down the possibilities and options, I don't think any of us will function that well. Then also, I think it's very important that we start to build tools and educational practices that are responsive to students and schools' wider education ecologies. Also, this kind of cross-sectoral development work may be important to consider so that education sector doesn't work on its own only, but we have teams in our governments where also housing, economic, transportation and perhaps environmental policies intersect, and we think about the future together. These types of think tanks may be very important. Also, that assessment systems and also assessment in general, we should assess competencies. Not only the importance is not the certification, but also the competency is very important. And rethink teacher education. Also, research is very important and evidence-based practices and decisions. So school-university collaborations are of great importance and interdisciplinary research and development initiatives. So I would urge these types of collaborations between the school, policy-making sector and academia. And of course, we learn the best from others who function in similar contexts. So peer-to-peer learning and networking is very important, and how we can support it better becomes pivotal. And last but not least, this is a wonderful meeting. We need more of these international, global sharing of our learnings, sharing of our challenges, tackling them together is of very importance in our world and the future that we are creating. Thank you.